This was such an interesting game because it was like three different
timeouts.
games.
Here's Brissett now. Pressure
At
from
the
the
beginning of this game, things were going in the Browns' favor. Right, I think the Browns were up 10-7. They had the ball at like the 21,
flat out dropped it.
And it seemed like, hey, maybe we can go up on the team 14, and then like that'll be good for the defense because they can't run the ball. Instead, we have to settle for a field goal. That field goal gets blocked, and then here we go. Right, it's the same thing that happened in Miami with the fumble, the Nick Chubb fumble. It's the same thing that happened last week when the center fumble. Oh, here we go. There's always a play in the game that just marks definitively where we lost the game. That's going to be what gives them the extra possession at the end of the half. But two critical things did not happen, right? Even though the Browns weren't up into this game until late after the Tampa Bay tied it, they only got a field goal on that last possession. And in the third quarter, they did not get 7 points, right? So, they not in the third quarter, but in that first possession coming out of halftime, they did not get the 7 points. And this is something I pointed out. The Browns have had these issues in games where the wheels fall off in this specific scenario, and it's happened 3 times. New England, Miami, Buffalo. What happened in those 3 games? They gave up points right before halftime. The other team got the ball to start the second half, and then they scored on the first possession, which put them up plus 10 points, which meant that they were in a position to run the ball, even if they're not run-heavy teams, and, which meant that they dominated because the team can't stop the run. Now, the Browns' run defense problems have not changed. They still have the same issues. They're still the same defense. But if you put that defense in a different situation, they're a much different defense. And what I mean by that is they can't be exploited as easily just because of what the score is, right? Tampa Bay was only up 7 for most of this game. The Browns defense can put together a good performance if they don't have to stop the run all the time. That's what happened. Instead of it being up to Tommy Togiai and Jordan Elliott, it was up to Martin Emerson. Much better player than those two, right? It was up to Denzel Ward. Yeah, we had a practice squad guy out there, number 31. But it really wasn't up to those two as much as it was up to Martin and it was up to Denzel. It was up to Grant, and those guys stepped up and made some big plays. And then when you have a team getting used to throwing the ball more, all of a sudden, you know who comes into play more? Myles Garrett. And in that fourth quarter, Myles Garrett and Martin Emerson both put the team on their back, right? Like every stop from the last 3 possessions in the fourth quarter to the end of overtime, Myles Garrett, Martin Emerson. I had never seen nothing like it, right? Myles Garrett was forcing penalties left and right, got a defensive hands to the face force, got 2 sacks late in this game at very critical junctures, tons of pressure, and then Martin Emerson capitalizing on top of it by getting stops that he needed to get. Those 2 young guys played in perfect tandem today defensively, and that's why you were able to have a chance to win this game. Jacoby Brissett, I'm going to be real, had a decent first quarter, had a horrible second and third quarter, and was on track for a bad fourth quarter, but got that one drive late in the game where he was able to get the ball to David Njoku on an incredible catch. David Njoku might have made the best catch of the year. One-handed, somebody draped over him in the end zone. Incredible catch by David Njoku. And it wasn't even reviewable. It was just, he got that clean. Great catch there to get it to 17-17. And then overtime comes around and it's okay, here we go. Tom Brady has the ball. What's going to happen here? Myles Garrett got a sack, right? The Myles Garrett and Martin Emerson stepped up again and continued to step up throughout the whole overtime, right? Because I believe there were 2 possessions each for each team. I think the Bucs got 2 possessions, the Browns got 2 possessions in overtime. Finally, on that last possession for the Browns, they get a big play to Amari Cooper to get the ball to the 2-yard line. Great play call by Kevin Stefanski, who I felt like did call a pretty good game. There were a couple of calls I took issues with early in the game, but for the most part, I felt like he called a pretty good game. Just a great play call to get the ball to Amari Cooper. Browns get the ball to the 2-yard line, and I appreciate what happened next because you know what? In that first drive, the big play calling mistake I had was they were in a position to go up 14, and it felt like they settled for a field goal. And that field goal got blocked. And y'all know how I am on here. I ain't got nothing against any kicker individually. I just don't trust them, right? Unless their name is Justin Tucker, I do not trust any of these kickers, right? So if I don't trust them, I'm going to do everything I can to score, not assuming that I can kick the field goal. If I get the field goal, I can get the field goal, right? That's what Kevin did. Kevin did not just sit there and go, well, we're at the 2-yard line. Let's just send out the field goal unit and call it a game. No, Kevin said, we're going to try to score this because we don't know who K-York can be on a given time. And look, it's just good that we finally learned that we cannot be trusting these kickers. And look, K-York can be a great kicker down the line. I still have the same philosophy because unless that man is Justin Tucker, I do not trust him. So they kept running the ball. Nick Chubb scores, game winning touchdown. Browns win in overtime. Overtime Brady. This was important for so many reasons. One, technically, it does keep you alive because now you have the chance to go 10-7. That would require Deshaun Watson winning out entirely. I would say this. It's far-fetched that the Browns could make the playoffs, but it's not impossible, right? They don't play the toughest schedule going forward. I would not focus on it as much every week. I would focus on the Browns week to week. Hey, if they get to week 17 or 18 with 9 wins, okay. Like now we got to talk about it, right? But unless they do that, then, it's not very likely. But that doesn't mean the season can't be fun. Nick Chubb had a couple of good runs in there, too. I don't want that to go lost on anybody. Anthony Schwartz, who had been, in the doghouse all season, comes out of nowhere on the first drive with the end around and scores, what was it, 31 yards on the end around to score? And then later in the game got like a 17-yard reception. It's not much, but it's something. And I'm just happy Anthony Schwartz was able to provide something because he was not providing anything for most of the year. I thought David Bell contributed well. We talked about David Njoku, Amari Cooper. Look, the brother had that one drop and oh my God. I think I might have to upload the highlights to the stream because Amari Cooper dropped that ball. And I did not move for 5 minutes or something like that. I was out. That had me. Like there was at least a whole 4-play sequence that I was out for. But yeah, I felt like they did a good job there. Chris Godwin did go off, but Mike Evans, who MJ was on, 2 receptions, 31 yards on 9 targets. Whew. Let me say that again. 2 receptions, 31 yards, no tutties. On 9 targets. Lockdown. MJ. Lockdown. Overall, for 3 quarters, this was kind of a defensive carry job. I'm not going to lie. Well, for 2 quarters, it was a defensive carry job. They played complimentary football in the 4th quarter. It was great to see. And now the elephant in the room. We are now moving over to the Deshaun Watson era. It's going to be a much different era, right? The $230 million quarterback. The expectations out the offense are going to change. The expectations from the quarterback position are going to change, right? We've been happy with what Jacoby Brissett has provided, given what the expectations were for Jacoby Brissett. But like I say, expectations change your enjoyment of things, right? If you blindly watch... Let's say you blindly watch Game of Thrones and you didn't even know Game of Thrones was a thing and you watched the first season of Game of Thrones and you might enjoy it, right? And that's how a lot of us got into Game of Thrones. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this, right? A lot of us got into Game of Thrones because we were watching it and it's like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then you heard word of mouth and you start watching it. It was good, right? But what happened with every season of Game of Thrones? The expectation kept going up and up and up and up to the point to where people were watching these shows at the bar, right? I ain't never seen nothing like that, but that's where the expectations were. So when that last season come out and it don't reach them expectations, people talk about Game of Thrones like it might be one of the worst shows of all time. It's just the expectations were high. The higher the expectation versus the letdown, that's going to be what gets people angry, right? But what Jacoby Brissett did, the expectations for him, for me, weren't that low, right? I had him about here. He went here. For everybody else, he went here and their expectations were down here, right? Like everybody had very low expectations for him. I'm glad he got this moment. I'm glad he got this opportunity. I hope he gets to capitalize on this opportunity with a fat contract in the offseason because he deserves it, right? Like if there's anybody who deserves it, it's Jacoby Brissett. That being said, it is time for the Deshaun Watson era. It is time for that page in the book. We have gone through, at the beginning of the year, I categorized this season into two parts of a season, right? Like TV, right? There were 11 Jacoby Brissett episodes, and there were 6 Deshaun Watson episodes. And ultimately, these things were going to be judged individually, independent of each other. These 11 Jacoby Brissett episodes, not going to lie, Jacoby ain't been the problem in them. There were some horrible performances from the supporting cast of these shows, in these episodes, but it ain't been Jacoby's fault. For most part, right? He had a couple of games where it's like, oh, goddamn, Jacoby. But like, other than that, he's been cool. And that's what I'll take away from this. Jacoby Brissett, the most likable dude, one of the most likable dudes to ever play quarterback for Cleveland. I mean, he just kind of plays the position and talks about the position like somebody who's just like, he's aware of how cool it is too that he's in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like he's aware of it too. And that's something great to see. I think everybody can relate to that. But that's my thoughts on this win. I thought it was a big win. I thought it was just a great win to get for Jacoby. And I felt like the team really, like that fourth quarter, they really decided, hey, man, let's get this for Jacoby. And it was great to see them come together like that. But that's it for today's video. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.